We're at AIDS 2018. We're here with Michael Aboud from ViiV Healthcare, and you're the global medical lead on dolutegravir. And we appreciate you taking the time to talk a little bit about the new way the concept in treatment at this point.
Thank you, Fred. Thanks for the opportunity. I think it's very exciting times, actually, we live in right now when it comes to antiretroviral therapy. So as you know, for many years, the standard of care has been 3 drugs combined specifically to create a regimen that suppresses the virus adequately and prevents sort of lots of virologic failure with resistance. But we posed ourselves a question at ViiV Healthcare, and this question was, if all the drugs you had today that's available to us in the market were available 20 years ago, would we have ended up with 3 drugs as a standard of care? And the answer was maybe, but maybe not. So let's explore this. We believed that we had a drug that was special in many ways. It had a high barrier to resistance, it's got a good tolerability profile, and it's been shown to be very efficacious in studies. This is dolutegravir I talk about. So we decided this drug may be good enough to support a 2-drug regimen. A regimen that consists of only 2 drugs that blocks 2 different targets of the viral cycle, and may just work as well as 3 or 4 drug regimens. So this is what we set out to do in the Geminii 1 and 2 studies.
The people that take the treatments are already taking a lot of drugs. I mean, I should say the older people, or like myself. There's a lot of other co-diseases and comorbidities, and it's important to minimize at least what we can. And the bar has been set so high for over the years. It's, it keeps on, every time we come out with a new drug, it has to be better than the others.
That's right.
So as that profile goes higher, the bar goes higher, we end up with a drug which is very resistant. It's great resistance profile. So can you explain how the trial worked that we're addressing here?
Thanks, yes. So in the first place, we hope that this new regimen, and eventually it will be available as a fixed dose combination, as 1 pill, will continue that spectrum of improvement, of innovation, because it will be a regimen that's only 2 drugs and 1 pill, right? So
the possibility exists that you can pack it into.
It does, and we're working on that at the moment. And and the data from the study so far suggests that the barrier to resistance should be just as good as it's been in recent times for other newer regimens, right? But specifically, back to your question, how we designed, the study to look at this answer. So what we decided is to look at patients who have never been exposed to treatment before. They may have been exposed for a few days for reasons like PEP or PrEP or something like that, and who are negative for hepatitis B, because obviously we do not want to cause any problems on that front. And we compared treating these individuals with either dolutegravir plus 3-TC or lamivudine or dolutegravir plus Truvada. And in our opinion, we compared this new approach, dolutegravir plus 3-TC, just 2 drugs, versus the highest standard in the market. Because as you know, if you look across all clinical trials, you will see that the highest efficacy rate we've seen to date is actually from dolutegravir plus 2 nucleosides. So we think we've gone for the highest stretch targets, the highest goal. And what we're analyzing at week 48, which is what was presented here at the AIDS conference, is how many of these subjects were undetectable from a viral load perspective at week 48 compared between the 2 arms. And what you saw is that the outcomes were really good in both arms of the study, very high efficacy rates, 91% in the dolutegravir 3-TC arm, and 93% in the dolutegravir plus 2 nucleoside arm. And I think this is actually really fantastic outcome for people living with HIV, because it says that you can drop one of the drugs or you can use 1 less drug and you get the same outcomes. Many times when you're looking at this this concept and you're thinking, I'd love to see high efficacy rates, at the same time you're also thinking, I hope not to see any let go of virologic control later that will result in virologic failure and then resistance. And specifically, we also looked at that in these studies, and the outcome is exactly the same. No patient failed with resistance to any class in both arms of the study. So we're very pleased with these outcomes, actually.
So where do we go next? Is it
next, we are submitting a package to the regulators, both in the United States and in Europe, and after that, sort of other countries globally, But we're also exploring and investigating this regimen, dolutegravir plus 3TC, in patients who are already virologically suppressed on their existing regimen, and just to prove that it's safe to do the transition if physician and patient thought that that was the best approach for them.
Okay, cool. So are we going to see this, what's the timeline, if you can? Do you have a...
Well, we aim to submit for regulatory filing later on this year. It's difficult to really predict the exact timelines, but as you know, there are averages for FDA and EMA regulatory approvals. For a new product coming to market with the FDA, it's roughly about 10 months. With the EMA, it's roughly about a year. So I can't be any more specific than that because obviously there are moving parts in place.
It looks good. Anything else you want to bring forward from ViiV?
I think as the studies go on, and the Geminii 1 and 2 studies will continue for a total of 3 years, we will be paying particular attention to making sure that patients don't fail disproportionately in the 2-drug arm versus the 3-drug arm. So we're looking at that all the way. But also importantly, we will be looking at the safety aspects of the trial. We've already seen at this presentation here that there's advantages to not being on tenofovir. And in the future, we have designed our switch studies for at least one of them to also look at switching away from a TAF-based regimen, because TAF is a relatively new drug, and it looks really good compared to tenofovir from some safety perspective. So we want to explore that better. Is that improvement from going from tenofovir to TAF good enough for people living with HIV? Or should we go beyond that and establish a paradigm that doesn't need one of these older nukes and see if we can tease out some safety differential in favor of not being on a specific drug?
So are we going to, I guess it seems like there's just nothing to do except wait for the compound to come out.
We never sit at ViiV Healthcare and do nothing.
Well, you have phase 4.
We have many other studies ongoing. There are smaller studies with dolutegravir 3TC we support externally, so we call them investigator-sponsored studies. We have 2 switch studies already planned. We have the pediatric space. We've already developed a protocol for looking at this regimen in adolescents, and beyond that, we're in discussions with the regulators as to how low, in terms of age groups, we will look at the regimen. But as you know, ViiV Healthcare has also a healthy pipeline with other modalities of therapy that we hope to also bring to people living with HIV, including long-acting injectables.
Which is exciting,
very exciting.
But out there.
Exactly.
It's out there. So do you know what the pediatric formulation will look like or be like? Or
it's unclear at the moment. We have to start off with data generation first, and as that shows efficacy and safety in this patient population, we will then be concentrating on what the actual formulation would look like.
Right, whether it be sprinkles or pills or whatever.
That's right. As you know, we've invested a lot of effort in developing formulations based on weight and age brackets for pediatrics with dolutegravir itself, and that piece of work continues through our pediatric team.
Right. Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you doing this with us. And
thank you for having me.
And it's always exciting to hear good news. And with all the, and whether you have a trial that does answer a question negatively, it answered the question.
It did for sure.
And we move on.
Great, and we do move on. Thank you very much for having me.